best player in the world, the best defensive forward in the world, the best defensive defenseman in the world, the best winger in the world, debatable, the other best player in the world, maybe, a rookie goalie versus a veteran goalie, a million veteran pieces chasing the chance to add a cup to their resume. The Cup Finals has as many storylines this year as any other year. Down 3-1, Edmonton has a bit of a saving grace as they have Connor McDavid. McDavid arguably is the best player to ever play hockey, and he's just 27 years old. 3-time MVP, 4-time player voted MVP, 5-time scoring race winner, and he just set the playoff assist record last night. What makes him so good? Well, he's the fastest player on the ice. Technically, some guys around the league have a higher top end, but in terms of acceleration and timing when he turns on the burner, McDavid is number one. A really good hockey player has to have a great IQ, and that's really what separated Gretzky from the rest of the NHL in his prime. McDavid has an IQ matched with the top end speed. It's stupid. McDavid just set the assist record last night, but he also has one of the quickest releases in hockey. He led the league in scoring last year. He probably also has the best handle in the league, and he's especially dangerous on the power play as the open ice allows him to basically decompose the opponents. I'm not kidding here. He plays on the power play like no one ever has. When he first entered the league, his defense was a bit of a question. His advanced analytics weren't actually that good on the defensive end of the ice, but since then he's kind of broken the analytics. Anyone who plays with him is now considered great analytically defensively, and that's mostly because the other team doesn't shoot or score when McDavid is playing because McDavid has the puck. McDavid definitely makes some mistakes so on the defensive end, and a team like Florida is arguably the best in the league at capitalizing on them. Maybe Vancouver as well, and that's probably why they took Edmonton to 7 in round 2. There's basically no situation where you would pick any player in the world ever over Connor McDavid, unless maybe it's the end of the game and you're up 1 goal and you need to defend a lead late, then you would probably take Alexander Barkov. Defensive genius is probably the best way to put it. I mean, that might be a little extra, maybe glazing or something. He's another big IQ guy, except instead of being the fastest guy on the ice, he's one of the biggest at 6'3", 215 pounds. There's videos out there breaking down some of his ridiculous reads on the ice and what his subtle positioning has done against Edmonton. He's a psycho. He knows where to go, what to do, when to do it, and how the other team reacts to him doing that. McDavid's handle is unbelievable because he's going nearly 30 miles an hour. Barkov's handle is unbelievable because he plays the most quiet game in the world, and then he pops out a Pavel Barber sicko move, goes back to the bench without a celly. Barkov might be the GOAT shootout player behind Pavel Datsyuk. Unfortunately for Florida, there's no shootouts in the playoffs, so Barkov is way more of a pass-first player than shooting, but his shot is still one of the best. But it's not as good as Leon Draisaitl, who is basically just Alexander Barkov if Barkov, instead of prioritizing defense, prioritized being the best offensive weapon in the world. Similar frame to Barkov, except Draisaitl is the player voted best passer in the world. He is an A+ passer. Part of what makes him great is his backhand passing, a skill which players usually tend to try to avoid. Where McDavid loves to push tempo and basically scare the fuck out of opposing defenses, Draisaitl likes to take his time making decisions. Something crazy elite players do in a lot of sports is set the tempo. Draisaitl likes to set the tempo a little bit slower so he can always seem to make the right decision. Draisaitl also has one of the best weapons in sports, the goal line one-timer on the power play. It helped him finish second all-time in power play goals in the season last year, and it creates so much separation that McDavid can find him and it's lights out. His shot is stupid, his passing is stupid, his defensive detail definitely lacks sometimes, but he's still number 4 in the NHL in takeaways last year. It's not uncommon for people to say that this is the second best player in the world behind Connor McDavid. Speaking of second best, if Kucherov in Tampa Bay is the best winger in the world, then Matthew Tkachuk might be the second best winger in the world. Matt Tkachuk is the son of a Hall of Fame NHL player, went to high school with Jason Tatum, and was part of the biggest trade of the century, which has set up Florida for back-to-back Cup Finals runs that they're on right now. Last year, he was the main character for the Panthers Finals run, where he had 3 overtime goals, which was tied for the most ever in a playoff run. But what makes him so good for Florida? Well, Florida's identity right now is forechecking, laying heavy hits, and still having a strong IQ and finishing chances whenever you get it on the rush or from the cycle. Matthew Tkachuk does every single one of those. He's arguably the biggest pest in hockey. He's one of the best hitters in hockey, even having one of the biggest Cup Finals hits ever last year against Vegas. But in the last 3 seasons, he's 6th in the NHL in points, and that's because he's an unbelievably creative player. He plays his own brand of hockey. He has an accurate shot, but where he scores most is when he puts his 6'2", 206-pound frame right in front of the net. He absolutely has a clutch gene. He's one of the best trash talkers in the sport, and he can't stop racking up points even in a slump. Kind of like Edmonton's top defenseman, Evan Bouchard. This guy is super polarizing because his point totals and advanced stats sometimes don't match the eye test. So, fact, he's the youngest guy in the video today. Fact, he's currently got the 4th most points ever from a defenseman in a playoff run. Fact, he's maybe one of the most gifted offensive talents in hockey, especially as a defenseman. Maybe another fact is one of his biggest strengths is knowing how to play with McDavid and Draisaitl to get a lot of points. points. He has one of the hardest shots in the league, even getting the name Boosh Bomb for his slap shot. And he has one of the few shots that actually serves as a real weapon from the blue line. There's 3 players who shot 90-mile-an-hour shot 60+ times this year. Third place, Victor Hedman, is a 6'6" Viking, 2-time defenseman of the year. Second place is the greatest goal scorer of all time, a 6'3", 230-pound athletic freak. Both of them combined are just a little bit more than Evan Bouchard, the 172-pound defenseman. He can hammer the puck. Some of the top defensemen in hockey love to carry the puck up the ice. That's kind of the new age Bobby Orr style, but Evan Bouchard is a lot more traditional in letting others take it up with crazy breakout passes. He's a quarterback with a crazy arm. Main specialty is definitely on the power play and knowing how to make defenses bite, and sometimes goalies bite on it too, like Sergei Bobrovsky. Goaltending is really weird, and Bobrovsky going from one of the best cup finals in NHL history to getting pulled the very next game kind of proves that. Bobrovsky is super athletic. He's not that tall at only 6'2", but he's a former 2-time goalie of the year and is on one of the most expensive contracts in hockey, a contract which people thought was going to be one of the worst in the sport until last playoffs, by the way. Bobrovsky's game can be kind of simplified down to, if he's feeling himself early, he's going to play like the 2-time goalie of the year. If he lets in some early goals, it's a little bit volatile. What isn't volatile, however, is Gustav Forsling, one of the most consistent defensive defensemen in hockey. Defensive defensemen are super weird in hockey because a lot of the time the best defensive defensemen are defensemen who know what they're doing, how offenses are going to try to get around them, and they know the team's system. Forsling can play Panthers defense like no one else in the world. Forsling's main trait is his excellent skating, knowing how to shut down rush chances, super reaction time, and he loves to join the rush for Florida, which helps because he has a pretty solid shot. The world is just kind of finding out about this guy right now because 3 years ago he was on waivers after Carolina tried to send him to the minors. Now he's arguably the most important defenseman on a cup finals team. Speaking of important, Stuart Skinner is huge for Edmonton. 6'4", big goalie. Because of his bigger frame, he's actually better at stopping shots that aim higher than most goalies, including Sergei Bobrovsky. He was a rookie goalie last year, and this is his sophomore season where he's actually slumped a bit in terms of consistency. A big trait for Skinner is allowing Edmonton to play high-end offense by giving confidence, something which has been a bit of a roller coaster at times. If Skinner is playing well, Edmonton is almost impossible to beat though. Bobrovsky is 35 years old, Skinner is 25 years old, opposite ends of the spectrum, and in the finals, sometimes experience in big moments is key. Big moments are where Carter Verhaeghe thrives, however, and although he's been quiet this finals, he is one of the best shots in hockey and has the highest rate of game-winning goals to playoff games played in NHL history. He's clutch. He's got one of the best shots in the sport, but he thrives best on the rush. Maybe not the best passer, but he's fine. He knows what he's doing, and his defense isn't amazing. He's probably never really going to lay a big hit, but as one of the fastest guys on the team, he plays the role of scoring big goals after Barkov, Tkachuk, and Forsling shut down the other team. Now, there's other big names in this series, like the big Swedish shutdown defenseman Mattias Ekholm, the league leader in hits Sam Bennett, the veterans like former MVP Corey Perry and former NHL cover athlete Vladimir Tarasenko, but these 8 should be the main guys. This series is 3-1 right now, and if we had to rank the players in this video based on their performance, it probably goes Verhaeghe in last. Hasn't made too much of a presence with how strong Edmonton's team defense has been. Draisaitl second last, mostly due to his own expectations, however, and there is a conversation that he's been battling injuries so far, which would explain a lot, or maybe Florida's done a lot of game planning on Draisaitl, that could explain some of it, but Draisaitl's A+ passing and his unbelievable shot has not really been put to use so far this series. Tkachuk in 6th place because, again, his expectations are just so high. He was the MVP for Florida last year, and he's still a pest getting shots and getting hits, so he's probably higher than Draisaitl, but he hasn't really generated a lot of offense. Skinner, Edmonton's goalie, takes number 5 because of his amazing performance in Game 4. He hasn't been bad in the finals, but played better this playoffs, and he's definitely played worse as well. So that's why he's right behind Gustav Forsling at number 4, where even after they got smoked 8-1 in Game 4, Forsling is still a +2 in the series. And with amazing defensive performances, he still has been fairly productive, getting 2 assists. Bobrovsky at number 3, he would have been number 1 by a landslide until he got pulled in Game 4. Unbelievable big game player, but just couldn't get anything going in Game 4, especially after it started so poorly. Barkov at number 2, he's absolutely enforced his style of play onto the Oilers and has been a huge difference maker. There's videos on how smart his IQ is and how he's making the Oilers make mistakes just by making every right play and always being in the right spot. On top of that, he has a goal and 4 points in 4 games, keeping that all-time mark of point per game. McDavid is obviously number 1 right now. There's a case he should win Conn Smythe for playoff MVP even if Edmonton loses a cup. He's broke Gretzky's record, has 7 points in 4 games, had a game where he made more high-danger passes than the entire Panthers team combined. It took some time for the stats to follow, but he's been amazing the entire postseason. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe for more.